Welcome back to the Gospel for Athletes. We are on episode 4, and it just seems like it just continues to get better and better. Today we have one of my good friends I met about, 3 years ago?
I'd say 4, through Denzel.
Oh yeah, it's been so long.
Yeah.
About 4 years ago, he's a great guy, great entrepreneur and business owner. So I'm going to introduce y'all to Mr. Alex Albarran.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, it's been a while since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
I'm excited that you have reached out to me. It's certain people, like when they give me certain compliments or see something that they like and they reach out, it makes me feel pretty good, especially you talking about the marketing and how the branding looks. So,
thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know you, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Gotcha. So we were talking about this before, but I don't like to say CEO or like chief executive of anything, because it's a little bit braggadocious. It's like I own a business. Well, I own a construction company.
Okay.
Had that for like 2 years, and I own a marketing company. I've had that for I think about 5 years, since 2018, 2017,
okay.
And that's how we met, through our friend Denzel.
Right.
And him and I have been growing together. Kind of, he's a partner in the company,
right.
And I own those 2 businesses. Yeah.
All right, cool. So. We're going to back it all the way up, because I know people say, man, this for athletes. So who is this guy?
Right.
CEO, this business owner. So, tell the people, what makes you an athlete? How did you, what did you do growing up?
Man.
Are you still into sports now? What's going on?
Right. Well, I retired from my love of basketball. My knees can't handle it anymore.
Okay.
So I played basketball growing up, though. Middle school, high school, and I could have played college, but that's, 50-50. With basketball, it taught me the best lessons that I take now into business, because I was like 5'2", 5'3" in high school.
Okay.
I'm kind of tall now, but I was 5'3" until I was 17 years old.
Gotcha.
So I'm saying that because I had to, in basketball, hustle. I had to box out. I had to play defense harder than anybody else on the court just to stay in the game.
Right.
So that's why I think me being an athlete isn't like, I was just high school basketball star. I really wasn't at all.
Yeah.
But I had to spawn the team because I was small, height-wise and physically, but I had the biggest heart on the team.
Right.
So that's why I think I took that into the business world, and that's what's helped make me successful. Is, of course, it's a part of God's game plan, but I definitely think that's helped a little bit, and so that's my athletic background. Okay. And I was pretty good. I was like a Rajon Rondo. I really couldn't shoot. Yeah. I was small, I was skinny, I couldn't shoot, but I had the most hustle, great passer, great basketball IQ, but the biggest heart on the court.
Yeah. I like that you said that you stressed that you had the biggest heart, and that's what kept you on the court, because working around the youth athletes now doing the photography, they don't really understand the heart of the game. They're just out there to be flashy, to post cool clips on Instagram. So if you could just touch a little bit more on that, what you kind of did, because you said that same mentality that you had to carry in basketball, you took it with you, and it made you a successful young entrepreneur. So can you, if you're able to, expound a little bit more on the importance of having heart in the game that you love?
Right. I would think you have to look at it as, what can we control? Right? I can't control if I'm going to make every single jump shot, or even every single layup, or if I'm going to make every free throw. But I can control putting in as much effort as possible on defense, rebounding, just running, not jogging, like running to go back on defense, running to try to get that chase down block or that steal or whatever it is. So that's why, again, I tie it to business, where you can control your effort, which is kind of related to your heart. So that's why I think that's tied into it, because I can control, like, how quickly do I follow up with these leads? How engaged am I on, let's say, a sales call or a phone call or a meeting, like even like this? Like, how focused am I? How much effort am I putting into it? And it has to be 110%, because that's what I can control. I can't control if this podcast is going to get 1 million views. I think it will. Give it a few years, but I think that's why with basketball I was so small physically. I had to be not only mentally strong, but I had to put in the most effort. So I think that ties to heart, is being able to focus on what you can control and putting in that effort, and whatever happens after that, it is what it is, but at least you did everything in your control to make it happen. And did you play any other sport, or just basketball? I dabbled in, of course, football and soccer and baseball, and I did train boxing for many years, but I'd say basketball was my main sport. Yeah, middle school, high school, AAU, travel.
And so at what point did you realize that basketball was going to be over with and that
Yeah.
you wanted to go into entrepreneurship?
Such a great question. So in high school, I wanted to make money. I mean, I was selling J's, like Jordans, flipping, stuff like that when I was 13.
Oh, wow.
I was going to McDonald's, I was going to Burger King, meeting with these random grown men I met on Facebook to swap shoes. And literally, like, I was like a baby. I look like a baby now.
Yeah.
Imagine how I looked at 13.
Right.
You know, so I was flipping shoes, I was hustling, so I always knew I wanted to make money.
Right.
Because I don't come from like a rich family, even a middle class family. I'd say lower middle class, so I had to, if I wanted a car, I had to save up money to buy a car. I had to pay for my gas, insurance, food, like nothing was given.
Right.
So I knew I'm not gonna go pro playing basketball.
Right.
I just knew that wasn't the case. Even college I could have played at some like D3 little school.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. But I said, let me focus on getting a job now, let me focus on hustling these shoes, and let me just start making money now. Because I think basketball was my first love,
Yeah.
but business is my second and true passion, my true love. That's how I put it. So that's when I knew it was time.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool and a good story because you said you started entrepreneurship at 13?
13.
13.
Yeah.
And you opened up your first, would you consider that like having your own business?
Oh, absolutely, because you're finding products, you're finding shoes where, I could sell these for 300, I'm gonna buy them for 150 though. I'm gonna clean them up, I'm gonna flip these for 300, then use that 300 to buy more shoes.
Gotcha.
And then it is a real business in that sense, and it's just a hustle.
Yeah.
Because you have to find value. You have to see like, why would I pay them 150? What can I do to then sell them for 300? So that's all you. It's all effort.
So how do you, like, what marketing techniques that you were using to sell these shoes to get people to say, I'm going to buy from Alex?
From this kid,
Yeah.
this little kid. Just hustle.
Yes.
Back then it was Facebook, now it's Instagram and TikTok, but back then it was Facebook. So Facebook groups and about shoes and reselling, and I would know people that, like this kid doesn't know anything about shoes.
Yeah.
I could charge him $250 for these Jordans when really they're worth like $125.
Gotcha.
So certain kids at your school, you could sell them anything, shoes or hats or anything, and their parents have money, so they just give them an allowance, and now that becomes your allowance.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So a combination of both. So
Gotcha.
you have to know your audience to a certain extent. Yeah.
So fast forward to today, you own 2 businesses, and I remember you were doing. I don't want to mess it up. Well, you were working with fighters, like promoting them.
Absolutely.
ASG.
AAG. That one was good. ASG. Albarran Sports Group. Yeah.
And so how did you get into that? And you're no longer doing that right now.
No, thank goodness.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that was rough.
How did you get into that? And I want to stay on that. Well, not stay on it, but I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, but it's related to
sport.
it's a sports related podcast.
Yeah,
so as I mentioned, I did train boxing, which is, I did boxing, Muay Thai, which is like kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA from high school until kind of even now. So it was kind of like my second sport. I never competed though. I like my brain. So it's not conducive to really keeping as many brain cells as possible.
Right.
And I was never gonna go to the UFC or anything.
Yeah.
So I like to train though. So I had all these fighters at my gym, and they were either going to the UFC, going pro, but nobody to manage them. So again, I'm like, this seems fun. I could just, because I watched Ari Gold on the show Entourage.
Okay.
That's how I really got the idea. I'm like, I'd love to try that one day.
And at this age, you are.
I was like 20.
20.
And I'm baby face now. I was even a kid at 20.
Were you in school doing this, or you?
Yeah, I was going online.
Okay.
But it wasn't like I was going to school, like studying. I was just trying to get C's. C's get degrees. That's my family motto. Like, you have remember the Lord in your house. I have C's get degrees in my house.
Gotcha.
Literally. So I had the time to do it. I had the fighters. I had the trust of them.
Yeah.
So I went off with it. And that's the thing. Like, and I want to talk about a little bit later, but like the fear of failure.
Yeah.
I had no fear of failure.
Got it.
Because I watched the show and I'm like, I want to do that at some point in my life. The opportunity came up and I said, screw it, let's do it. Let's see what happens. So I had 10 fighters at my peak, and I was managing them. Like, I need to get them fights. I need to get them sponsors. I need to get them to the UFC. And that was the business. And I jumped into it with absolutely no experience whatsoever. And it worked out kind of, yeah.
How did it go? Because you said you're no longer doing it. So
Yeah. So with ASG, Albarran Sports Group, I had to decide if this was a real viable business or if it was a passion hobby. but the time I was putting into it made it seem like a business,
Right.
but my bank account seemed like I was putting a lot of money and time into it, not getting anything out. In my marketing company, I had that at the time too. That was growing a lot. So I made the decision where you could pursue your passion to a certain extent, but I think my passion is business.
Okay.
So that's why the marketing company made the most sense in terms of mixing my passion with, of course, making it financially viable. So, but the ASG was an amazing experience because I can watch Entourage and be like, I did that. For at least a few years I did it. I got people to the UFC, went to their fights. It was an amazing experience. I'll never forget it. But that's why I pursued it. I didn't fear failure, and it worked out in my opinion.
That's cool, man.
No regrets.
Not a lot of, at 20 years old, I couldn't even imagine myself doing something like that. So
contracts and negotiating and
with no experience, that's
absolutely zero. Oh, I guess negotiating with people about shoes 7 years ago when I was 13. I think that did help, but to a certain extent, no experience in the industry.
Right.
Yeah.
And so earlier when we were texting, probably like a couple days ago, you told me that you were part of the organization Fellowship for Christian Athletes.
Yes.
So what is that really? I've heard of the organization and I've seen a couple people talking about it, but I don't recall like what is their like true mission. So if you can tell me like what that's about and how did you get involved with it?
Definitely. So the mission is bringing faith into athletics. That's really the simple matter of fact, but it really is middle school, high school, college, bringing faith into these schools with the athletes, because a lot of the time it starts in the home, but some of these kids, they don't have anybody in their house that talks about the word or brings them to church or talks about anything involving faith. And so FCA just wants to introduce it to them. Say, hey, here's an option, here's what it's done for us, and here's what it could do for you. And that sort of thing. It's not pushy, it's not like on them like that. It's just trying to present like, look at what this has done for my life, so you should check it out.
Right.
Because in schools, athletes, and especially in middle school and high school, athletes are the popular kids. Like they're the ones that people look up to, I'd say.
Yeah.
So if they eventually start taking on to this and they start bringing Bibles around school and they wear their cross, it just brings up like a positive conversation where maybe one kid who would never really talk to the athlete talks to him about his faith, and I think it's an overall positive thing to at least introduce the concept of it to people at that age, where it's kind of they could go one way or the other. And maybe instead of doing X, Y, and Z negatively, they could find FCA, they can get involved with the right group of people, a good community, and go this way. So I think it could be the fork in the road for many people, especially a lot of people in sports. Certain sports, they don't come from like the best neighborhoods or the best households, and so this gives them another community to talk to, get different ideas from, because you are who you hang out with the most. I think it's like the 5 people you hang out most with, and so this just gives people an opportunity at a young age to get a different perspective and get maybe their eyes open to something they never even thought of before.
Have you and how long have you been involved with that?
A year.
A year? Have you had like any testimonies from any of the athletes yet? That
Absolutely, a ton.
What's like the most memorable one you can think of?
I would say the biggest one is, it was a young guy. It was about his change of, like I said, who is his circle. Okay. Before, his circle was people that were doing illegal things, very negative, and not gonna bring him on the right path that he was really destined for. But we got him with like a nice community of people, and he started volunteering, and he started to see like, oh, it's not just this way. I can also do X, Y, and Z with my life, and I think that's why he wasn't even like the best player on the team, but it was the biggest impact because we could have changed his entire life from going from this situation, and we changed his entire trajectory just by being involved with FCA. And we want to do that all across the world.
Oh, that's nice, man.
Yeah.
And when did you commit your life to Christ?
So I would say I did go to church as a kid, but very infrequently. Okay. Very like for 6 months straight, and then nothing for the next year. And then really spotty like that. I would say at 18, I made the choice, especially based on, I wanted a framework for my adult life in terms of how I built my character. I wanted a solid guide and a framework for that, number one. Number two, I wanted that sense of community with the right, like-minded type of people. That's what I was looking for, so I think that's why I made that decision when I was, about 18, after high school.
And how has your experience been so far, like having God in your life, like?
Amazing. It's been, the past 6 years, and it's only getting better. Like every day I wake up, my life's only getting better and better. So that's why I really think that I have a game plan from God, and it's been working out. It's going to continue to work out. Yeah, because I do the right things as well, and we're going to talk about that. But it's not just about, he's going to figure it out for me. It's going to be fine. It's like, no, you have to put in the effort. You have to put in the action. You have to have the heart. You have to do things in your control to make it happen. That mixed with his plan for you, that's really where everything starts to go up, and you see that growth. So,
and we can actually dive right into that, because that goes into a lot of like my wife and I have been discussing a lot lately about like I told you before we started recording, like using what you have, putting towards the action. And the scripture that points out to me is faith without works is dead. And so a lot of people don't understand what that truly means, because they do just sit around and just like, okay, well, God gonna come and save me or do this and that.
Save me.
Yeah. And they do have, like, I do believe God has put certain desires in their heart to do whatever it is that he called them to do to expand the kingdom here on earth. And so I know you said you want to talk about like free will. Like I was reading over. So is there something like specific about it that you wanted to like discuss, or? I
just find it very intriguing. The concept of like how much of our success and what happens in our life, how much of that is due to the effort that we put in and the ideas that we may think we come up with, but they're given to us from God, like it's a part of his plan. So like what's the combination, what's the balance of that? I think some people think it's maybe too much one way or the other. I think it is a balance. Some people think it's all me. I did this. Me. It's like, no, you didn't. You're not really anything in the grand scheme of this thing. Like, you're a small piece of this entire puzzle. But on the flip side, some people think, everything that's happening to me, even negative, is his plan, so I'll just stick with his plan and do nothing about it. It's like, well, if you want to start a podcast like this or a business, you have to put in the effort. You have to mix and combine like free will, your actions, and of course, be true to the word and everything along those lines, and mix them together. So that's kind of what intrigues me. Like, what do you think about the balance of those two?
Yeah, what I've learned and have been really like putting into practice is it starts with reading and understanding the word first. And I think that's what a lot of people, they do mess up at, because they read it a lot of times with their own understanding. They take it and they just run with it. And I don't think many people are sitting down and really trying to dissect what is it that God is really telling me to do. Because we're never, even if some people just say like, I don't really know what to do right now, God hasn't really told me anything to do, but he has given us a set of general instructions to do, even until we find our specific gift or something like that. So for anyone, like, you can always start off, the basis of it is spreading love to people. Like that's what the gospel is about, showing love to anyone, and then just telling people about him. And that's why I think most people try to stem away from. They try to go straight into the thing. So like for you, they try to go straight into business. And it's like, no, I'm going to use you as an entrepreneur, but you haven't even got the basics down first. And I know for me, that's where I got lost at times, and I got confused and was trying to figure out, like, man, like, what do I do? How do I do it? When the whole time I had the camera already, I had the lights, and I had the passion to just share the gospel. But I thought I had to be on a certain level in life. I thought I had to talk to certain athletes on a certain level. But it's like, no, just do what I told you to do, which was go out, compel men and women to come, share the gospel. You just line yourself up with my word and help show people why this way is the best way. And I think that's where I think that's the thing that people just miss most. Like, bro, just sit down and just read the word and take yourself out of it. Like, stop trying to put your own ideas. I heard a pastor say, don't tell me what God meant, just tell me what he said.
That's a good line. Wow. And so what is it again? It's don't tell me
what he meant.
Tell me what he said verbatim.
Because the Bible say, man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. And so if we just go in his word and just read, like, okay, he said, do unto others as I would have them do unto you. You know, there are some pastors that and even they don't even have to be pastors, people claiming Christianity, that says, well, I'm gonna treat people how they treat me. That's not what the Bible says. It says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That means if somebody just treating you like crap, you don't want to be treated like crap. The Bible says treat them how you want to be treated.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Yep.
Now, a lot of times, and I listen to different podcasts, and I hear people that isn't confessing Christianity try to touch on this, and they're so wrong. It's like, bro, just do what the word says. Like, we ought to always treat people. Yes, it's hard, but we don't focus on that. Like the disciples, plenty of times asked Jesus what he meant, and just like, man, well, how can anyone be saved? And all he would respond with is, with God, all things are possible. So don't focus on how hard it is. Don't focus on like the little small details, man. Just do what he said. No matter how hard it is, because he has given you the strength to do it if you lean and rely on him.
And he gives you that guideline, that framework on if you want to achieve this is what you need to do. The basics, and then of course you can level up, but people don't want to follow the basics. They want to have a great business, but they disrespect their employees or even their customers. It's like, you're not really getting this. Even if they have a good business, they don't get the basics.
And something I want to ask, just for myself and the people that are listening, like, how did you find like that fine line between like knowing that, okay, God called me in this area of entrepreneurship, but I must keep the basics and I must keep Christ first? Because we see a lot of times, a lot of people, they're called into certain arenas, and then they slowly but surely forget Christ. They focus, their focus is on money and building the business,
status, stuff.
But it's like, bro, like Christ said, seek me first. So like, what is like some advice, or what are some things that you do to make sure that God is always number one, and what he's given me, the platform and the gift he's given me to build businesses is number two? What's something like that you do?
Gosh, that's a very good question. I think, well, first of all, I've had relatively good success at a relatively young age, but it also has been up and down. It hasn't just been a rocket ship going up and to the right. It's been up with, let's say, my food company. My first company, like real business, was a healthy meal company. That went pretty well. Then it didn't. Then I had the marketing. Then I had ASG. Then I stopped that business. So it's been up and down. So I have to stay humble, because I know nothing good lasts forever, and you have to take advantage of every opportunity that you have. But that's where I've stayed humble, self-aware, and grateful. Like, if my business is killing it right now, I'm not thinking about, I'm a little bit, but how can it even be better? You have to think about growth as well, but you have to be grateful for, wow, look at where I was when I was 18, look at where I'm at now when I'm 24. It is that balance between not being content in a negative way, like, oh, I'm good with business, staying like this forever. Like, you want to keep growing, but you also want to be grateful for how far you've came. So I've always kept that gratitude. I've never gotten caught up in the status or the stuff, or this is my one pair of jeans, this is my really only dress shirt. I'm not into stuff or spending money like that or going out to clubs or anything. It's just more about the growth. I'm excited about that, but I'm also super grateful for, wow, look at where I was before, look at where I am now, and I don't compare my growth to other people. Because you never know their circumstances, you never know their situation, so I never compare. And the comparison, that's what gets people focused on the status and the money and the lust. Like, I want that, I need that. It's like, you don't need followers, you don't need likes, you need the word.
That's good. That's I think is very important for people to hear these days, because I think pride is taking the world by storm, especially in our age group. I see a lot of times that people are just talking about, they call it popular stuff. I don't say the other word, but I don't understand that from people that confess to be Christians, learning it, because the first step that Christ told us to do is to die to self. And so for me to promote self at all times, for me to say that self-love is the best love, I can't necessarily agree with that. When Christ told us that we are to die to self first, it's looking at him first, and then others, myself last. So
that's totally flipped for 99% of our age range. Totally flipped, and they lack that altruism. Where even if nobody's going to say, like, oh, I'm the most generous person ever, but it's about effort. Like, if you don't have money, put in time. Volunteer. If you have money but you don't have time, donate money. Like, everybody can be more altruistic. That's one thing where you constantly need to find growth there, and people don't. They give $5 to somebody, they're like, oh, I'm good for the year. It's like, no, it's not a one-time thing. It's every day you have to find, how can I do something for other people? Maybe it's my family, maybe it's friends, maybe it's somebody that I've never met before. But like, look with FCA, I can change their life. Who knows? So I think it's like you're saying, putting God first, putting others first in that extent, like, how can I help other people? And then things seem to then work out for you if you follow that order. Most people do it the complete opposite way, unfortunately for them.
It is very unfortunate.
Especially our generation with social media. I mean, it is damaging our generation.
Yeah, we have today. I don't believe I know that like there are much more distractions today than there were probably when our parents were our age.
Oh yeah, not even close. Yeah.
Of everything that's just growing, and so I know like things like this, the gospel for athletes, or whatever other things God has His people working on. We truly need to really like push the gospel now more than ever, because there are so many other things pulling us left and right. Even for myself, like I know I work on just being disciplined with the word, because at any moment, like I stated earlier, like something can take my attention off, or I can focus on trying to build this. Like for this podcast, like I had to sit myself down and just say, okay, Josh, like, what are you doing this for? Like, are you trying to build the next big podcast? And it's like, no, that's not why you're doing this. You're really just trying to get the message of the gospel out.
That's the purpose. That's it.
Yeah. I don't care if if God has me to reach 1 million viewers, then cool.
It's part of the process.
Yeah. If not, then I'm content exactly with where I am, and that's something that's something that I truly want. I truly want to master, and I want those around me to master, and that's something that I even would talk to Denzel about often. I remember one time I asked him about because we were discussing, and we can transition over into like wealth and Christianity and what that means. But I had asked him one time, because he was talking to me about like he started reaching a certain level of success financially, and so I asked him, I said, bro, if God ever were to tell you to give it all up, could you? And he just looked at me and he said, yeah. He said, I was just wanting to know why. And so as we just continue to talk and you know, we just hang out, I always just ask him, and I just talk to him about that, because I feel like he's here. He has been here to help me understand and help me just take care of the things that God has given me to take care of, like financially. And I believe God has placed me in his life to help him stay focused on what's true. And so leading into that conversation about like having money and a Christian, is it wrong to have money as a Christian? Is it wrong to have lots of money as a Christian?
Right.
The Bible, I haven't seen the Bible say that this is wrong, but what it does say, and I wanted to really look this up, and I was looking at it before you came, and so I'm just going to read the scripture. It's 1 Timothy chapter 6, and I'm going to start at verse 2, and I'm going to read the NLT version because it's the easiest to understand. And so I believe this is this Paul talking to Timothy, or in First Timothy, or is this Timothy talking to the church? One or the other. But it says, teach these things. Oh, so it's Paul talking to Timothy, I believe. Teach these things, Timothy, and encourage everyone to obey them. Some people may contradict our teaching, but these are the wholesome teachings of Lord Jesus Christ. These teachings promote a godly life. Anyone who teaches something different is arrogant and lacks understanding. Such a person has an unhealthy desire to quibble over the meanings of words. This stirs up arguments ending in jealousy, division, slander, and evil suspicions. These people always cause trouble. Their minds are corrupt, and they have turned their backs on the truth. To them, a show of godliness is just a way to become wealthy. Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. after all, we brought nothing with us when we came into this world. We can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if we have food and clothing, let us be content. But people who long to be rich fall into temptations and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kind of evil, and some people craving money have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows. So with that, as a business owner, and even myself, I believe God brought me into this world of entrepreneurship, and I know that was something I struggled with, like, man, like trying to provide for your family and trying to reach a certain level in your finances. But I realized, bro, like for me, when I just tried to, like, I literally tried, like I would sit down with this, I wrote up plans, I would try to stick to the plan, and then things would happen. And the final straw for me, when I say things happen, like it just wouldn't work out. And the final straw for me was when I had just started doing like delivery jobs, and I was using my car, you know, just going out and just trying to hustle and just try to do my part as a man to provide for my family. And it was something that happened with my car, and I had to pay like $800-900 for it. And at that time, I didn't have really the money to do it. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna be a responsible guy. I'm gonna just do it, and then I'll make the money back. So I put it on my car. I paid like the $900, and like 3 days later, I got into an accident. Car got towed, and I said, all right. Like I was down for a minute, and then just conversations with my wife and just really trying to understand what's going on. I believe like the Holy Spirit just had told me like I'll take care of you. And so that was something that, like, as a man, I would fight it, because I'm like, I'm supposed to be able to take care of my wife, and she tell me the desires, like, oh, okay, she want to go out to eat, she want to travel here, she want to do this. Okay, well, let me work hard so I can save up this money. But I couldn't do it. Like I literally was incapable of doing it because certain things had transpired. And so that's when I had just learned how to relax in. And she just says, and it's biblical to just live in the kingdom, where God just talks about, like, look at the birds, like they don't stress about what they have to eat or drink and all that. They just live, and I take care of them. And he said, if I do that for them, how much more will I do that for you? And so that was an eye-opener for me, and still to this day, I have to constantly sit down and say, Josh, like you're not striving to try to become a millionaire. You're not trying to do this. Like, you have to learn how to live in the kingdom. And if God just so happens to take you to another level financially, then good. But be content, like he said, like godliness with contentment is great gain. And that's something that I've just literally been trying to really learn. So like to those like entrepreneurs, I would just say that, like, for some people, they are called to more finances, because God has them on a certain level to do whatever for the kingdom. I don't know, but contentment, godliness with contentment is great gain. And I believe like that's the message to all entrepreneurs, especially those in the kingdom and those that want to live for Christ. So if you want to just like say something on that.
Yeah, that is a conundrum though, like you're saying. Everybody that I talk to that has the faith, that reads the word, they're kind of 50-50 as business owners. They're like, well, I want to pursue growth in my business. I want to get these dollar signs, but I also want to stick to the word. And I think that's what you said. I like what you said in terms of, you don't want to just make more money just to make more, to spend it on stuff or a car or things like that. For me, I want to make as much money as possible, because I know I'm good with my money and I can help a lot of people with that money. That's why I agree with what you're saying, where you don't want to love money. You don't want to be lustful after money, because it's never going to work out. It's never going to work out. So I definitely love the growth. I love business. That's my passion. And from that, I think I can make a lot of money. And from that, I can help a ton of people with my resources. That's why, and it talks about altruism, like giving back, helping people out, helping the church, helping people in need. That's why I think you can balance both. You can make a lot of money, but don't look to spend it on a mansion or cars or clothes or purses or anything like that that isn't going to affect your quality of life. It's not going to affect your happiness. If anything, it's going to bring the wrong people. It's going to attract them to you in a bad way. But staying humble, spending money on what you need, and giving back to people that actually need help, and of course the church, I think that's the good balance in my perspective. But I understand your perspective too, because it depends on your plan, depends on my plan. It is subjective to a certain extent.
Do you think like if you never like reach another level financially, would you be like content and say like, okay, God, like,
for me, yes. Now I'm at that level because not like I'm balling or anything, definitely not, but I'm definitely like comfortable. My finances are very reliable, very consistent. I don't have to worry. I think that's the biggest thing where I don't think God wanted us to worry. Living paycheck to paycheck, stressing out, can I afford food this month? Can I afford rent? I don't think that level of like scarcity is what he wanted. But we don't also need, like I said, like a mansion and whatever, cars, plural, like people have cars and all these miscellaneous expenses that they don't really need, these various things. So I think there is a balance in the middle. But yeah, for me, I'd be okay with it as long as I pursued what I wanted to pursue and I gave it my best effort. And at least if it didn't work out, at least I know I pursued what I wanted to pursue and I put in the effort, like we were talking about earlier. I put in the heart, and whatever happens, happens. So I think, yeah, I would definitely be fine with it. Because I also have now the money and the time to give back to whether it's even FCA at the time or Best Buddies. I'm with Best Buddies as well, or the church as well. Best Buddies, yeah, it's an organization that basically is for people that have mental, I would say, intellectual disabilities. So there's people that join that are in college and of course middle school, high school, and adults. And I connect with people like that where then we go hang out. We go to Topgolf, we go to the movies, we go to the mall, we hang out. And for me, God put that in my life early. He's like, you need to help people that maybe need a little extra help to make friends, to be social. So that's a big focus for me. But going back to your question, I'd be totally fine if this was the level I stayed at, because I'm not in the scarcity level. Like, I'm definitely thriving, but I don't need to make $1 billion. I don't need to. If I continue to do what I do and I end up making that, then it is what it is. But I'm okay with having resources to help people and the time to help people, like with Best Buddies and with FCA and things like that, and actually making an impact and living my purpose. So I think it is a combination. But as long as I'm pursuing what I want to pursue, and people that are watching, if they have a goal or they want to do something, then do it, and whatever happens, happens. And if you end up making a lot of money, then that's a byproduct. But don't have a certain amount of money as your goal, because then that's going to lead to you scheming and doing different things that aren't really part of your plan to try to get there, and that's where that lust of money is evil.
Before we wrap up, like a question that just came to me: do you know like any like spiritual gift that God has given you, like the gift of faith, the gift of love?
Wow, amazing question. I would say I have the ability to communicate with any human being on planet Earth very well. Any background, any likes, dislikes, any interest, any situation that they're in, I can communicate with anybody, and I can make them feel heard. That's what people really want. In my opinion, people want to be heard. People, if they have an idea, if they have a story, if they, like I said, just want a friend, they want to be heard, and I feel that that is my superpower. I can connect and really communicate with anybody.
I know that's very true, because since I've been married and I just started really listening to the things like Yazzie would say, and just because of how she grew up and just her personality, I never really knew that people wanted to be heard and loved like they did until I really met her. Because I looked at a lot of people from my point of view, and I was like, oh, well, they don't need it. They can't take this. They can take this and that. But yeah, I think I want to know, like, Yazzie, and I don't know if you can help me. We can go off script. Do you know, like, that ability, if they had to be put under like a gift, what would that become? Compassion. The gift of
Compassion, interesting.
I would say compassion.
Compassion.
I guess it's also just maybe just communication. Being able to communicate. People, like I said, they want to be heard, so you got to ask them questions. I've been talking a lot, but I'm a guest on the podcast. But besides this, though, I love to do the 80-20 rule, where if I'm in a conversation with somebody, I want to be talking 20% of the time, if not less. I want to ask a ton of questions, let them talk, and really get to know them. That's how I build that real, like, true connection, where if I'm at a networking event and there's 1,000 people there, I'm going to find 1 or 2 people, and I'm going to really connect with them. I'm not trying to connect with all 1,000 superficially. I want to really get to know and let this person be heard, or these 2 people be heard. And that's how I can build real connections, like with you or Denzel. I met Denzel because I met a guy at Starbucks who then connected me with Denzel, and we met at a Panera Bread. So, like, and then now I know you, and it's just that understanding people, understanding like what they want, what their needs are, what their situation is, and like I said, most of the time they want to be heard, they want to be loved, as you mentioned, and they want to have somebody connect with them and understand their perspective. So I guess that is compassion. Yeah.
That reminds me of the scripture about how do they say it? Taking interest in others. I can't remember the exact word, but that's what that reminds me of. So it seemed like it flew by like pretty fast, but absolutely. Yeah, man, that's it. Just wanted to talk to you, ask you some questions, and share some things. I'm glad we got to talk about that subject on like wealth and Christianity. So if there is just like one piece of advice you want to give to some young athletes turned entrepreneurs, or athletes who know that their time as an athlete is winding down and don't know where to go, there's any like piece of advice
I have it.
Give them.
Understand the difference between self-doubt and the fear of failure. Everybody has self-doubt. It will always be there. Michael Jordan has dealt with self-doubt. Tom Brady has, but you can't let it control your decision making. That's one thing. Then fear of failure, you can't have the fear of failure. Like I said, I've had businesses that didn't work out. All you need is one. I've started now the construction company, marketing company, sports company, meal company, shoe company since I was 13. And like really the marketing and now the construction have really worked out. But I've never feared failure, and I've had parents and cousins and people tell me, don't start that. What if it doesn't work out? That's their own insecurity. Don't listen to people that aren't where you want to be. Don't fear failure, and understand that you're not going to get rid of your self-doubt. It's always going to be there. It's always going to linger, but acknowledge that it's there and get over it. Like I said, it's never going to go away. Even today, every night I'm thinking, is this really going to work out? Am I supposed to be an entrepreneur? We'll see what happens. I'm going to keep going. I won't stop. But if you let the self-doubt control you, you're going to have regrets. To athletes, entrepreneurs, whoever. So don't fear failure, and always understand that self-doubt's going to be there, but still push through it and never let it control your decision making. That's the best piece of advice I can give.
And that just ties right in with the scripture about how God has not given us the spirit of fear, but a power, love, and of a sound mind. So you can just constantly remind yourself that when fear tries to come and stop you from doing whatever it is that God has placed in your heart to do, remind yourself that this isn't of God, and that He has given you the power to go forth and bring change and bring the kingdom to people here on earth. So that wraps up episode 4. Thank y'all for listening, and stay tuned for more.